Hey guys, it is MissSimReno. If you are returning to the channel, welcome back. And if you're brand new, I am so excited that you decided to join me here today for a little bit of a different video. I have been promising this for months at this point, and I'm finally doing it. This is going to be a little bit of a beginner landscaping tutorial. I'm going to try to break down how I approach landscaping in The Sims 4, and hopefully you can find something valuable out of this as well. Number one, I want to say this right off the bat, there's no right or wrong way to landscape a build. This is something that I had to get in my head really quickly when I started building in The Sims 4 because I was so worried about it being correct or not. And I promise you, anything that you decide to do in regards to landscaping will be absolutely wonderful. So just want to boost your confidence real quick before you start. Now, if you are just starting out in The Sims 4, there is a build and buy catalog. So when you are in build mode, you are going to see these icons here at the bottom of your screen in this little UI. You'll have an outdoor plants category, an outdoor water decor category, and you'll also see terrain tools. Now, we might touch on two of these categories today, but the first thing we're going to look at is the outdoor plants, because then you're presented with trees, shrubs, flowers, and rocks. These are going to be your four primary categories, and they are exactly what they say they are. They make it very, very user-friendly in that capacity. So the build by catalog is a great place to start because if you have all of the packs or just some of the packs, even if you just have base game, you are going to have a plethora of options to choose from. So right now, for example, we are in Newcrest, and let's say really quick that you just have base game. I'm going to filter down to base game really quick, just for the sake of this example. This is what you'll actually see when you load up the trees menu underneath the outdoor plants. So you'll have a ton of different trees, like this beautiful baby right here. You'll have this one that kind of resembles a tree out here, out in the distance, which we'll come back to in just a second. You also have some other diverse shapes and sizes and colors and everything like that. Most of these, at least what I've noticed in regards to the tree category, there are no additional swatches more often than not, but you might see some swatches in the shrubs and the flowers. But as you can see, there are tons of different options for you to choose from, and there's no right or wrong, so choose whatever tree your heart desires. As I mentioned, you also have the shrubs category, which does have a bunch of different shrubs for you to choose from as well. Again, some of them might have swatches, some of them don't. Some of them are like hedgerows as well. I will be using shrubs and hedges synonymously throughout this video as well. So just keep that in mind too, because you can see that there's a stark difference between some of these, which are more so little shrubs, and this one is more so kind of a hedge. Same with this one here. This one's a little bit more of like a boxy hedge, if you will. And we also have, is this from Debug? I don't know where this is from. Ignore that one. But we can't forget that we do have a llama shrub and also an elephant, because why would you not have that in The Sims 4? So we know about the build and buy catalog, but did you know about the nice super secret squirrel menu of more landscaping items that don't cost you 35 simoleons per bush? Because if you don't, I would highly recommend that you check it out. So if you are on PC, you're going to want to open up the cheat bar, which for me on my keyboard is Control-Shift-C. It'll open up here at the top, and here are a few cheat codes that you're going to want to know about. So number one is you want to do BB show hidden objects. And then you press enter, it'll just disappear, it's good to go, the cheat is entered, and now you want to do BB show live edit objects, if I can spell that correctly. And then you just press enter again, and it should be good to go. Now what you do is you go down to this little search bar in the UI, and you type in debug, and you will have this extensive menu of things. It's not just exclusive to landscaping items, but you can start to see here that they're labeled as debug. And this is actually a little flower shrub, and it has different swatches. So if I were to go ahead, even though they don't seem to have labels, you can see that there are different swatches here. Now, what's so great about the Live Edit Debug catalog is that you are going to find plants, shrubs, and flowers and trees that you would not typically find in the Build and Buy catalog. So for example, this bad boy, that is not in the Build and Buy catalog. but it's a nice looking tree. Same with this little shrub over here. Same with this tree here. We've also got, oh, this little one, this precious little tree. I love that one so much. And we also have just some like little bits of grass and things like that. It's the little details that you'll see around some of these worlds in The Sims 4 that we don't have in the Build and Buy catalog, but you can access them in the Live Edit Objects and Debug catalog, and they're all free. It makes landscaping starter homes, for example, or even just homes on a budget, super affordable, and that's something I'm always looking to do because you're very limited with starter homes. You might even find some cool plants like this that have little planter boxes at the bottom. I believe that these are more so meant to kind of be up against the side of a house. They look really nice, and you might even see some potted plants like this, or this, or that, or this. You can see that there is a ton of variety for you to choose from, and these right here are just from base game. So you could imagine that if you have more packs and you access this Debug and Live Edit Objects menu, that you will have so many plants to play around with. Now, one of my first tips in regards to landscaping that I try to follow because I feel as though it makes my builds blend in with the world so much better is I try to match the landscaping that I see in the world where I'm trying to build. So again, we're in Newcrest, so you can see there are a few different kinds of trees, mainly some pine trees out here in the distance. We've got some of these bigger, kind of cool looking trees, don't know what you would call them. We got these little bush trees, these little bush babies here. We have some hydrangea, some low-lying flowers, and just kind of some bits of grass. So what I might do, let's say we were in, I don't know, the regular Build and Buy catalog. So I know that we actually have hydrangea flowers in the Build and Buy catalog. And you can see here that this flower pretty much matches exactly what we have out in the distance over here. Now, what I seem to be missing potentially, but I could be wrong, there it is. You never know. Sometimes you never know. You have to go looking for these things. So this is very similar to what we have in regards to that flower bush over here. But perhaps this one might be a little bit closer. Well, we've got some different colors, but I think this is actually the texture that we're more so looking for. But you can see that the swatches, we don't actually have a red flower swatch. So that's one thing I'm already seeing is that this particular flower might not be in the Build and Buy catalog for us to choose, which makes it a little bit more challenging to have our landscaping blend into the world. Now, I do know that these low-lying flowers here, these low-lying pale yellow flowers, are in the Build and Buy catalog as well, so we can match those. However, we don't really have grass pieces that exactly match what we're seeing over here. So I would likely choose something like this that's very similar, or I would go ahead and type in debug once again and see if I can find the exact item. Now, for me, there is no easy way to search this menu. I do not have the organized, what is it called? The organized debug mod by Twisted Mexi. If you are into mods and that's something that you want to explore, I would definitely recommend it. Just isn't for me. A lot of people will swear by it, but I'm just very used to where things are in the menu as is. So as I'm kind of browsing around here, I don't see anything right off the top of my head or something that I notice immediately that matches, but what I could do is I could even play around with some things. I could say, you know what, I want some of these purple flowers. I want a big lavender bush, which I think is really pretty. But I was also able to find this tree over here that we can see out in the distance. So if you wanted to go with these kind of pine trees instead, you could do that. And we even have a couple of variations. This one's a little crooked. That's okay. This one's a little bit skinny. We like that too. But that is my main point, is that you might want to try to start off landscaping to blend the landscaping into the world around you. So why don't we plop down a house and go ahead and try some of these techniques in real time. This absolutely adorable colonial family home was built by my friend Reese. So if you are looking for it, I believe it's up on the gallery. But I removed all the landscaping, all of his lovely landscaping that he did. But so let's go ahead and go with that very first rule. So if we were going to landscape to match the world around us, let's go back, grab some of those hydrangea flowers, and just kind of start placing them around, as well as some of these low-lying flowers here. I do wish we had that red swatch because I think it would match the window boxes really nicely. That would be kind of nice. But you can see that even now it is at least starting to blend into the world just a little tiny bit. It doesn't seem, at least for me, it doesn't match the way I want it to though, with the colors or maybe even the style that I'm looking for this particular build, which kind of leads us to the next rule, if you will, that I try to follow. So I try to choose a style. I go with either manicured or unkempt. Those are my categories, okay? So the way that we just had that, and you know what? I'll actually put it back because I want to show you the difference. So if I were going to go unkempt, I might go with a bunch of different shaped bushes and flowers and like untrimmed grass. But if I were going to go very manicured, which personally I think this build kind of calls for, I might grab a shrub like this, and I might just go ahead and plop it all the way around this build, just as an example. And this all depends on what you feel as though matches your build and what you like. This really comes down to preference, but it might give you a little bit of guidance on different approaches to take. That's kind of my goal here. So this would be the manicured side. This would be more so unkempt. You can kind of choose which style that you like best and which one you think would fit the build. Now, the next step that I try to follow is to choose your colors, okay? Now, choosing your colors, I personally would be going off of these flower boxes that are already placed on this build. They are bright red. So you know what's great is we can go down to the colors filter here off to the side, and we can choose red. Now, this might limit some of our options. I'll omit the base game filter just for right now. But we do have some fun colors like this. These are under the red category. These plants are a little much for me personally. They're all from the Romantic Garden Stuff Pack, which isn't one of my favorites per se. So even now you can kind of see, well, yeah, we might be matching the colors, but I don't know if this style or this kind of plant is really what I'm looking for here. So we're gonna go ahead and ditch those. I'm not a huge fan. However, the one that I just had out, which I just deleted, oh, actually, we do have this one. Again, this would be a little bit more unkempt, but let's go ahead and sneak that one in here. Oh, we've got this one right here. This is really nice. This is kind of a shrub slash flower. That could be kind of nice. And you know what? It complements the very manicured shrubs very nicely because I think they're lower to the ground. They're different colors and different shapes. So I'm just trying to kind of strike a balance here. We also have this one, which I just sized down a little tiny bit. And it could be a low-lying flower. It does tie together nicely. Might not be the exact way I would landscape this, but just to give you the example of choosing your colors. Now, here is the one thing that I will absolutely do when I am landscaping, and this is really to just make my landscaping look far more realistic, at least from my perspective, and a lot more, has a lot more depth to it. So you can notice here that these shrubs are a little flat. Right? There really isn't too much texture to them, and some of these flowers have a lot more texture than the shrubs do. So what I will do is I follow my rule of 3. That's what I call it. So a shrub slash hedge, because they're under the same category, a tree, and a flower. That's what I try to do. I try to match those things. So for example, if I were to get rid of that color filter, and I'm going to go into trees really quickly. Now for this house, because I would want it to be a very kempt landscaping style, is I might get one of these very fancy cypress trees and I might literally just plop it right here next to the house. Not too bad. I really like it. If we were going to go ahead and carry this landscaping through, I would maybe take these hedges, plop them down really quickly. Don't mind my keyboard clicking. I have a very mechanical keyboard. And let's just say I'll carry them to there for right now. And since I want this to be very manicured, I might even try to balance things out on each side of the house. So I might take another one of these trees, get it really close to the edge, maybe not that close, and do that. Looks very, very regal to me. It looks very nice. But so I've got a shrub, I've got a tree, and maybe now I want to grab a flower. And therefore, I am going to choose... I'm going to choose this one because, number one, it's red. It's a little bit more unkempt, but I think it looks really nice. And I think it blends just a little bit. Even if you don't carry these shrubs or these flowers all the way around for your landscaping, even adding balance like this could be a really positive thing for your build if that's something that you choose. It could look really, really nice. And I think the pops of red go really nicely and they're subtle enough to make the flower boxes still stand out, but to add a little bit of depth to your landscaping as well. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is using rocks. So as a reminder, these are in the outdoor plants category, and we have, with base game at least, these very standard 5 rocks. Nothing super exciting, but they do have some different swatches. So for example, if we were to pluck this rock out here, we could go ahead and go through some of these different swatches. And this all depends, again, on the look that you want, as well as matching the world around you. So I could use this gray swatch if I really wanted to. I could use this kind of more sandy swatch. And then there's this one that somewhat matches some of the rocks that we see out here. Now for me though, even though one of the rules I attempt to follow is to match the world around me, this swatch here to me matches more so a desert landscape. So I am personally just going to use the default one. I'm going to use the default one, and I might put a rock like right there. I might put another little wonky one right here. And you know, it's all right, but I might even go a little step farther and use some of these rocks to actually create a little bit of a flower bed. So I'm just taking random rocks. I'm barely twisting them. I'm barely moving them. I am just placing them along the front, and you can see it makes a little bit of an unkempt garden bed, but with the manicured landscaping, it still seems, in my opinion, pretty balanced. So I'm just gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna carry these through just to the edge, just for the sake of this video. And there you have it. You have a nice little garden bed on each side. Now, one final thing that I think we're personally missing, even if you can't see a lot of it, are the terrain paint tools. Now, this is under terrain tools, which terrain tools themselves, in regards to elevation and playing around with that can be a little bit more advanced, but today we are just focusing on the paint tool. So what I like to do is I like to go under the dirt and sand category. I typically use this darker soil. And you can adjust the paintbrush size here, by the way. You can go really big or really tiny. I'm gonna go with this size here. This seems to fit. And now what I'll do is I will just drag it underneath all my plants. And I'll have it kind of go a little bit outside the rocks there, something like that. I'll even do the same thing over here. And there you have it. Some terrain paint. Now you might be thinking, well, why did you do this? Why would you use terrain paint? It doesn't really make that big of a difference. But for me, it makes a huge difference because I think that sometimes The Sims 4 and some of the plants, and especially look at the ground, look at the grass, it is very, very flat. I want to bring a little bit of depth to my landscaping. I want things to look a little bit more three-dimensional, and I want it to look as though there's actually dirt underneath where all these plants are growing from. So I really love to do that. And just to top it off, you know what? This doesn't have to do with landscaping, but I'm going to go ahead and use the square paint tool, and I'm just going to add a pathway. It's a great way to use the terrain paint, by the way. And there you have it. We've done a little bit of landscaping here to the front. We've used a shrub, we've used a tree, we've used a flower, and we've used rocks and terrain paint. So that is my little landscaping 101 tutorial on an existing build. And again, these are just rules and tips and tricks that I typically follow when I try to landscape. It's how I taught myself how to landscape my builds. And if you enjoy my landscaping, maybe you will find this tutorial useful. But just remember, there's no right or wrong. Landscape to your heart's desire. And hopefully there are some solid takeaways from this. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts. And if there are other landscaping, well, not other landscaping, if there are other tutorials that you would like to see, definitely let me know in the comments down below. But I will catch you next time I post a video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!